Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac, Jack, and Jim This Week in Sports. As we go through all the sports this week, update you, get you more information, and cover it more in depth. With our guest today, we have Keith Angle, who will be up at 8:10, followed by Robert Butler coming in at 8:30, and the Philly Sports Guy at 9. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack, and our co-host on every Sunday show, Dallas Cowboy legend Jim Jeffcoat. Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mac. You make it seem like we're seeing ourselves for the first time at this moment saying good morning. Are people supposed to believe we didn't meet before the show to say good morning to one another? Unless we really don't like one another and we're first saying good morning now.
Well, Jack, sometimes you know it or not, I mute you during the pregame pre-show so that I don't hear your thoughts at all. So just
oh, that was it. I thought I was having technical difficulty and I was struggling from my end, and now I hear this.
Right. I want to be so folks, we're live on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook Live, and we're on all other platforms that I shared it earlier this morning, Twitter, and all the different groups that we're in. And we appreciate you all carrying us and tuning in. So, guys, I want to start off with something, and I don't know if you saw what I put in for the show, but there's a lot of excitement about the free agency in the NFL, stuff we've never seen before. It's sort of like fantasy football, right? I mean, you got your team, you select your quarterback, your two receivers and running back, and now you have your team. And it sort of reminds me of that a lot. And a lot of sports networks love this because they're so excuse me. All choked up, guys. There's so many different stories attached to this free agency and so many side stories. To me, guys, it sucks. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I hate it. And I'm going to tell you why. Jim, you'll recognize what I'm talking about. I talked to Jack about this early this week. And to me, what this does is stops a generation from experiencing what we experienced growing up following football. We knew who our team was. We knew who the players on the team were. We grew with the team. Today, that's not happening anymore. When you watch the Pittsburgh Steelers, you knew Terry Bradshaw, Franco Harris, Jack Lambert, Swan and Stallworth, Mean Joe Green were going to be back next year. That was your team, and you followed that team for years. Same thing with Dallas back then, right? You had Staubach, Dorsett, Pearson, White, Harvey Martin, and these guys. Right. There you go, and you guys, and you followed that team. That was your team, and even if it was a bad team, for instance, like with the Giants or the Jets with Jack, you followed it. Even if they were bad, you knew the players. You knew what was going on. You knew stories. And as your team grew, you grew with the team, right? I mean, when the Giants finally made the Super Bowl after many years of having terrible teams, I felt like I won the Super Bowl with them. I was there with them. I was there when they drafted Harry Carson. I was there before Harry Carson. But I followed it every week. Fans aren't going to get that anymore. The younger generation is not going to get that anymore. If Russell... Go ahead, Jim.
No, I said you're right. Because of free agency, it has been lucrative to the owners and the players, but you lose the flavor, and that was my argument. I mean, I think free agency is fool's gold myself, but that's another story. But you're right. I mean, we grew up with, and that's what I said, the names: Doomsday Defense, the Steel Curtain, the Purple People Eaters. I mean, the Hogs, and you had the Great Wall and things like that, Big Blue. You can't have those anymore. You can have them, but they don't mean they're not as significant with the Jets, the Sack Exchange, because you don't know how long those players are going to be there. They're there for a couple of years and they're gone. I mean, quarterbacks maybe be the only position, but now they're becoming a big commodity to sell and use for other teams. You don't know how long your quarterback's going to be there.
Guys, I mean, the cap plays a big role in it. And the lack of loyalty, it shouldn't surprise us. The Rams yesterday traded Robert Woods, their wide receiver, to Tennessee. What was his crime? His performance didn't slip. He got injured in November, but now they have a hard time slotting him in under the cap. I remember a studio interview with CBS, and Jim, you could relate to these guys because you know obviously quite well. Jimmy Johnson and Ken Norton Jr. Jimmy Johnson said something, I don't recall specifically what it was, but Ken Norton Jr., you could tell he was a little shaken. He said, but Coach, I thought you always said you loved us. And Jimmy Johnson said, if we can fit you in under the cap, we love you even more. And Jimmy Johnson was honest. You know, I give him credit for that. He says, because of the cap, you can't have loyalty, you know, the way you'd like to. And you're a good example of that in a certain sense, Jim. You played
right.
for Cowboys 12 years. They found someone who they felt could be a little better at that moment.
That is true.
And you had to shuffle off to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I really didn't shuffle, but you're right.
Well, at that stage of your career, you
Yeah.
didn't have to bounce.
But-
Maybe you had before. I
but-
don't know.
But Jack, even if Jim left for his last few years to play at Buffalo, I mean, listen. So did Emmitt Smith left for a year or two. So did Unitas. So did, I mean, some great players at the end of the career, they still want to play football. And the team, for whatever reason, and normally it's because you're getting older and they want to get a little younger, let you go or trade you. But Jim will always be a Dallas Cowboy. Johnny Unitas and Manning will always be Colts. Rice and Montana will always be 49ers because they spent the majority of their careers, and they were long careers, at that one team. And this is what I'm talking about. You don't have that anymore. You know, Jim mentioned the people, the Purple People Eaters. Well, every year you knew Fran Tarkenton and Chuck Foreman, Ahmad Rashad, Page, and Eller were going to be there. You knew that. And this generation is never going to, from now on, will never get that feeling.
The only position they'll get it at is, for the majority, is quarterbacks.
Well, even there, Jim, you look at Russell Wilson, who's still fairly young and still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. If that was my team, I'd be heartbroken right now. I would be so mad.
But
go ahead.
All I was going to say was, for the most part, those quarterbacks have a chance to be in a long-term relationship with the team. But other positions don't do it. Von Miller was a long time. We'll always remember as a Denver Bronco. But now he's been a Ram. He's been obviously he's Bills now. And you see it all over the league. And it's sad. To me, it's sad because just like you said, you grow up with certain things, but it happened in basketball. Like I told you off air one time, I was a huge Dr. J fan when he was with the Nets. So I became a Nets fan. And they traded him to the Philadelphia 76ers. So I went with Dr. J. I'll be honest with you. I became a 76ers fan.
But you know, Jim, even in basketball, you know, you had the great Celtic teams. You did have the great 76er teams. You did have the great Laker teams. They weren't moving around all the time.
No.
You know, and I understand basketball is really a 10-man team, really say a 6-starter team. I get it. I do get it. I understand the players got the power. And that's, you know, to me, I mean, all well and good for these guys. I'm glad they're making millions of dollars. I'm glad the teams are doing whatever they got to do to get under the salary cap. But to me, man, it's really sad.
It is. I agree with you. It's hard. But you look at teams like the Bengals. Eli Apple, they got him from New Orleans. Chidobe Awuzie, they got him from Dallas, and that helped them get to the Super Bowl. So teams are looking at it different than we look. They're looking at, can these parts help us go to the next level?
Right.
But getting back, guys, the lack of loyalty. You mentioned the quarterback position. Take the case of Matt Ryan. He's been a Falcon his whole career, a possible Hall of Famer. The Falcons were all in on the Deshaun Watson talk. They wanted to sign Deshaun Watson.
And they
didn't do it. Now, what's Matt Ryan supposed to think? They're going to go back to Matt Ryan. Oh, we love you, Matt. We want you to finish your career here, this and that.
Good,
And
it's a great
you
point.
know, when you get someone who's a little better, it's a cold, brutal business in that sense.
Big time, and that's your
No,
reality.
there's very
Players in
rarely
reality.
there's loyalty.
Yeah, but they're understanding that now, that there is no loyalty. When you're making millions and millions of dollars, there's no loyalty. It is,
And that's and Jim, it's a plain shame, folks. Backstage right now, Keith Angle, host of TGI Sports. We got a few things to get with him about. We talked to Keith about this Friday, but I want to get in a little bit of Yankees and March Madness, because I'll tell you, Keith covers that like nobody else. Good morning, Keith.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, Keith.
Doing well. So let's talk about the Yankees real quick before we get into the meat of the March Madness. The Yankees seem to have their infield set now. You know, they got the Donaldson and Flaffa and Rizzo's there, and either Torres or LeMahieu, but they still got a big hole in center field, Keith, right? And they still need a little help in their pitching rotation. What do you think the Yankees should do to try to fill these slots? Go young, try free agency? What do you think?
Well, the market's drying up for center field. I mean, I don't know where they're going to go, to be honest with you. To me, it looks like they may be locked into what they have, which is not good because the options are not good. You know, if Hicks cannot come back and play at a fairly high level, which he's only done, I think, one season with the Yankees, they're going to be hurting. And I'm not I don't know whether it takes somebody changing a position, because they do have a lot of kids in the minors in the infield, as we know. I don't think it's going to be one of the top two kids, obviously. As we talked about Friday, they may very well be the second and shortstop tandem going forward, maybe even as soon as later this year. But the Yankees do have some trade chips in Torres, at least. And maybe, I'm not sure Donaldson's here for the long term. I know you and I disagree on this. In fact, I don't think Donaldson's got a lot left in the tank. He's not the player he was, even a couple of years ago, and injuries catch up with him. His defense isn't as good as it was. So maybe he's going to, be flipped here, depending on what kind of start the Yankees get off to.
True.
It's going to be very interesting. And pitching, you talk about center field, but we're still a little thin in pitching too. If they're healthy, then the rotation looks like it could be certainly a contender worthy, but that's a big if.
Keith, let me ask you this question about that. Would pitching should become more important now they're not shifting the outfield, correct?
Yeah.
Because now that's going to help your defense.
Yeah, that doesn't take place until next year, though.
Oh, next year? Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing I'm not crazy about, changing the whole dynamic of the game. But we can talk about that on a different show. But that'll be next year that comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
I said I thought they were going to. I thought they're either Voit or Torres was going to go soon. It did happen with Voit.
Yep.
Torres, to me, everybody, we have Dr. Paul in here, who's an unbelievable expert. He knows everything from minor leagues on up about the Yankees, and
he does.
Writes every day about them. So, he has to research the Yankees every day. I feel Torres is going too. I think that he's the only one that could really get us any kind of resources right at this time. Jack likes Torres. He is a young ball player and could turn it back around. I don't know. But I think if there's one player the Yankees have that can get us a few more players, it would be Gleyber Torres. Carlos says he's going to San Diego. We'll see. But what do you think, Keith?
Well, it's funny. I agree with both you and Jack. I do think Torres can turn it around, but I don't think he can do it here in New York. That's a different story. A lot of guys, this is not an easy place to go into the kind of funk he's been in for 2.5 years now.
Keith, he's had success in New York. It's not like he hasn't had a good season. Not
in the last 3 years, though. He's not been a good player. Yankees have jerked him around, put him at shortstop, playing him out of position.
That was a mistake. That threw him off. He's going to have a good year this year, Gleyber Torres. Mark my words. He's not going anywhere. He's going to have a good year.
I think he needs to go, though, to have that good year, to Mac's point. And he's one of the few chips they've got that they can trade. Who else are they going to trade to get, whether it's a center fielder or whether it's to upgrade the pitching? Who else are you going to move? Because you do have an opportunity to move DJ into second base. And if you bring one of the kids up to play shortstop later on, then Kiner Flaffa can play that DJ LeMahieu role around the infield. He's got that kind of versatility. So that, to me, would be the logical move if there's more to come. And he may very well go somewhere else. And this has been the Yankees. Look, that's why Gary Sanchez was here for so long, because the Yankees were afraid to trade him and have him flourish somewhere else. You can't be afraid of that stuff because they aren't going to rebound here. That became obvious with Sanchez. And I think it's the same situation that's coming to a head with Torres as well.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. All things that can happen. We'll see. Let's get into March Madness.
It's madness.
This is my day for
It is madness.
This is my day for I told you so. I told you about Watson, told you about Voit. My final four, Keith, are still alive.
You picked St. Peter's in the Final Four, didn't you?
Well, St. Peter's is still alive, so that's I would still be okay there. But UCLA, Auburn. Let me see. I got to make sure I got them right. Of course, Gonzaga, and I think it's Arizona. I'm not sure, but I got to look it back up. But anyway, I'm still alive when that goes. It's Auburn, Arizona, yes. So I'm still in there. But there's still a lot of upsets happening, Keith. We were surprised. Well, I don't know if we were really surprised in the first round. It happens, right? But still today, I mean, Iowa going down, I think, just happened. Let's see. Let's see.
First round.
That was first round.
Let's see if I get your story. North Carolina beats Baylor 93-86. Kansas beats Creighton 79-72. Michigan beats Tennessee 76-68. Providence 79. Richmond a big 51. UCLA gets by St. Mary's by a lot, 72-56.
I was surprised at that result.
I wasn't. St. Peter's beats Murray State 70-60. Arkansas beats New Mexico State. They both were playing high school basketball 53-48. Gonzaga beats Memphis. So, I mean, the big one, of course, is North Carolina, right? We had a lot of people had Baylor going to the Final Four. That didn't happen.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on those games? Do you see St. Peter's moving on again? I don't, but do you?
St. Peter's is going to have a tough. What do they have here? I think they got Purdue coming up. I'm not sure. Let me just check real quick in my bracket. They have. Who do they got here?
Let me just comment on the Baylor game very quickly, losing to North Carolina. A mind-boggling game. I couldn't believe Baylor's down 25 points with 10 minutes to go, and how North Carolina blows that lead, but then they rebound in overtime to win. I mean, that was an intense game. Well,
I was going to say for the first game and a half. Sorry, Jim, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The first game and a half, North Carolina looked like the best team in the country. With their first game against Marquette, they blew them out, and yesterday getting that 25-point lead with 10 minutes left, and I went and I think I took a shower and I came out and it was like gone. And I was like, what happened here?
Well, Keith, you take long showers.
And that's all that matters. So win in advance. That's all that matters.
Keith, get wet, wash up and rinse, Keith. You don't stand in there and sing for an hour.
Well, Keith thought, I don't blame Keith. Mackey thought it was all over. 25-point lead with 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Come on.
Save water.
Send over to the fat guy showers. That's my
So anyway,
to get back to St. Peter's real quick, they do have Purdue the next round. I would say that they cannot win that game, but that'd be foolish after watching them beat Kentucky. So
I don't know
for these teams going forward, though.
I don't know if you guys watched when St. Peter's won that first game, Jim, and all of you. I don't know if you saw that.
I watched basically the whole game. Yeah.
What impressed me was the coach. He wasn't excited. He wasn't hoarse. He's like, yeah, well, he's standing, he's talking like this was supposed to happen. If that's their coach, they're going to have a heck of a program out there. Whatever happens during this tournament. I mean, he was not excited at all. He says they all, they all think they should be on Kentucky. They all think they're good. Some of the players think, and he said, think. That doesn't mean they should be. But he was so calm. And so, and the report is like he just won, anything.
Well, he said to the reporter after the game, she said, "Why aren't you nervous?" He goes, "It's just basketball."
Yeah, you got to remember they're in Jersey City too.
Yeah,
dude, they see more stuff in a day than obviously most people see in a lifetime in Jersey City.
Good point.
So there's only 2,000 people on the campus.
I think, small, 2,200.
Small campus.
Yeah.
I mean, and their coaches make less than Kentucky's grad assistants. So what do they have to lose?
Yeah. Well, there's to Jack's point about they're set up going forward no matter what. But the problem is Holloway's not going to be there. He's already rumored if Willard moves on from Seton Hall to Maryland, which seems kind of likely at the moment, he's going to go back to his alma mater and coach Seton Hall if he doesn't get a better job than that even. This is what happens in these tournaments to these coaches. They don't stick around once they have this success.
No, Jim mentioned something that's getting me to think. You take a school like St. John's, who's not in the tournament. That's a commuter school. Can a school like that ever get back on top because they don't really have a campus? So they're maybe a little less appealing for students to go to.
You know, the way the way the game is today, I don't know if they can. I don't know if those schools for one streak, like 1 year, they can get hot and do it. To do it over year after year, like St. John's did it for decades, basically, they were, you know, one of the top teams in the East, if not the nation in some years. It's going to be very difficult. You see it with them. You see it with schools like Marquette. They can't compete year after year at a high level the way that they did before. You know, the Blue Bloods are always there. Kentucky had a down year last year, but they came back this year. Duke had a down year. North Carolina had a down year. They're all back.
Yeah. And the thing you always realize is that the one thing about those schools that Jack mentioned is that they can develop players.
Yeah.
Because players will stay there, and that's usually their only option at that time. Yeah. But now you're seeing players transfer to the bigger schools from the smaller schools.
That's the problem. We talked about this, I think, Friday. You know, why the mid-majors can compete with the big boys is because they have experience where they don't. The talent level is certainly better at Kentucky than St. Peter's or some of these other schools. But they have the experience going on their side. But the transfer portal, as you mentioned, Jim, is kind of changing that dynamic as well. So
yeah, it is because what was Manick was from Oklahoma, wasn't he?
Yep.
He got there, and then there was one of them has a kid from Eastern Washington. One of them, I mean, you see it now with the transfer portal. It's changing. It's just like every other sport. Transfer portal is changing basketball.
There's a kid that I can't remember who he played for. I read the article last night, and I was going to talk about it on my show this morning, so I got to find the article. He's on his fourth team. They won yesterday. He's in his fourth team in 4 years. Or 5 years, I guess. But.
Leave it to the Mac, Jack, and Jim show, bringing up New Jersey street thug reasons why that St. Peter's is such a tough team. I just love the insight of this show. So Keith, today we have another, anything can happen, right? So we got Houston at Illinois, Ohio State at Villanova, Michigan State at Duke, Iowa versus Wisconsin, Notre Dame at Texas Tech. Nobody's talking about Notre Dame, but they're playing really well. Auburn versus Miami of Florida. See you later, Miami. Texas at Purdue. See you, Purdue. TCU at
Arizona.
Thank you, Arizona. So see you, TCU. So some really interesting games coming up.
Don't discount TCU today. I'll tell you right now.
That's what I'm saying.
I heard there's a real tough street down there that they that a lot of those students walk to. So we'll
Texas Christian University is one of the tougher.
Yeah, it is.
But they are close to top six.
See, Jim knows all this stuff. Yeah, that's why we have Jim on the show to keep our everything in perspective. Last thing, who do you think? Any upsets today, Keith?
As I mentioned just now, you got to watch out for TCU. They've been really hot second half of the season. They played really well through the Big 12 tournament. Before that, they beat Kansas at home the last week of the regular season and almost beat them a second time at Kansas 4 days later. So this is a team don't discount for sure. And if I get to me, one of them, look at whatever happens in the game is going to happen. But Duke, Michigan State, to get to see Coach K and Tom Izzo go at it one more time, I think is must-watch TV. These guys are two icons in the sport, and no matter what happens, it's going to be a lot of fun. And remember, the last time Duke made the tournament, because they didn't make it last year, they had COVID the year before. 2019, these two teams met in the Elite Eight for a chance to go to the Final Four, and Izzo beat Coach K. So we'll see what happens today. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. They're all pretty good matchups for the second round. This is not an upset other than TCU, and that was an 8-9 game. I think they won.
Yeah.
I would give Miami a chance. I would give Miami a chance actually today too. I don't know that they'll win, but I think they'll have a chance.
I would give Houston a chance against Illinois because I was impressed with Illinois.
Illinois,
they can't run. They're
Yeah.
not very good in the open when they start running.
Our trade-in process feels too easy.
Hold on.
They can't
They
believe
keep
it's
going to basket.
Can you imagine Notre Dame wins the tournament and they restore glory to a school known for football?
Yeah, I can't imagine it, but they would have some glory. Yes.
Yes, there would be a lot of glorious things happen in Notre Dame.
Look, weirder things have happened. UCLA was one of the last 4 in last year and got to the Final Four. So weird things happen in this tournament.
All right, Keith. I'll take your word for it. So anyway, guys, thanks for coming in, Keith. Check out March Madness, and also check out TGI Sports Talk. Keith Angle does a great job over there, especially with the college huddle. He's all over that stuff.
I just want to mention something to Keith that we didn't mention on the last show, and we should have.
Brian Hoyer.
The New England Patriots signed his favorite quarterback, Brian Hoyer, to a 2-year extension. So if Mac Jones tweaks an ankle, Brian Hoyer's the man. Just want you to know that.
Gosh, I thought we got away from that when you didn't bring it up Friday. I thought we
yes. Well, we'll all be surprised when Matt Hoyer is replacing Mac Jones as the starter by week 6. Everybody's going to be in awe and shock.
I won't be in awe. I'll be like with a bottle in a ditch somewhere, probably.
Keith, you just got off a luxurious cruise to the Bahamas. Sitting in the ditch drinking.
Well, next October I may be throwing myself overboard on that cruise if Brian Hoyer's.
Oh my goodness!
Okay, so there you go. There's Keith Angle bringing you the hottest news and his plans for the future. If Matt Hoyer comes to start.
Brian Hoyer is the best clipboard carrier in the league, and that's what he should.
No, he isn't. Chase Daniel.
Oh no, that's good. You're good, Jim. I'll give you Chase Daniel.
I would like to see Jim be in charge of coaching evaluation. You bring it to camp, Baker Mayfield, Brian Hoyer, and Kirk Cousins battling it out for the starting job, and let Jim decide who's.
If I want to keep my job, it won't be Kirk Cousins.
Whichever one the fans don't kill gets the job.
That's right.
Yes, or Jim doesn't kill him. Again, thanks for coming in, Keith. We love having you in every week. We'll see you Friday. Have a great show today, my friend.
All right, guys. Have a great Sunday.
So,
hey, Jim, Kirk Cousins signed a 1-year extension.
I know, for 25 million.
We definitely went over that, and Jim was not happy with that at all. So let's bring up our weekly guest that comes down, best at breaking down the best and biggest stories. And folks, let me tell you, Robert Butler, not only is he a sharp dresser, you know how that ZZ Top song goes, but he is now has, you know how you have those weather trackers when you see the weather now where they go after the storms? Robert has a sports van tracker right now. So when he's driving around, he's driving towards the highlights, any big stories, you could see him coming on right then in his sports tracking van. So let's bring up Robert, talk to him a little bit, and see what's going on.
Right, it's like tracking tornadoes, you know?
Yes, you had right for it. Robert was driving towards Cleveland last night from Tennessee. He was all excited about the Deshaun Watson thing. So, Robert, let's get into it. Free agency, Deshaun Watson, take the 22 civil suits, put them to the side for now.
Yeah.
There is the thing in the contract which was really interesting to me because there should be a suspension coming down. There probably would be. They structured the contract so the first year they only paid Deshaun Watson $1 million, and that was put there for that reason. But I want you to go through, break down the whole trade, tell us what happened and who really got the best part of this trade.
Well, yeah, it is $230 guaranteed dollars there, million. That's the most in NFL history. So you look at that, and then you look at the fact that they did give up 3 first-round picks, the number 13th overall pick in this year's draft.
Right.
But you got to look at what Cleveland's what their history's been. Their last Pro Bowl quarterback was an alternate in Derek Anderson in 2007. And then to look back farther than that, you got to go back to 1987, guys. With what was that guy's name?
Channels and sleep up to 500
Bernie Kosar.
Right?
Made you turn the radio on in 1987 there. So at the Leather Hammond era there.
I got things going all over the place back here. Go ahead, Robert.
So the guy's 26 years old. I did read read some news this week that they're saying that he could get suspended. It's a chance, which I think is total nonsense since there was no criminal complaint filed. Jim, we talked about that last week. And but there's a Pro Bowl level quarterback, 5 years, he's 26 years old. Yeah, I'm going to give up some picks that's probably going to be after this year in the 20s, maybe 30, 32 perhaps. This is the best landing spot, I think, for Deshaun Watson.
Guys, I wouldn't be shocked if he's suspended for, let's say, 8 games or so, because the mistake that the NFL, Roger Goodell, made before was suspending Ray Rice for only 2 games. Had Ray Rice been suspended for 8 games, he might be playing in the NFL today. There wouldn't have been the uproar. There's going to be a major uproar if Deshaun Watson is only being suspended for 2 games, right or wrong. I think that's why Cleveland made a very silent move that could be big next season, getting Jacoby Brissett as a backup. Brissett wasn't going to go to Cleveland unless he thought he was going to get to play some of the games at least. And that's what's kind of pointing to. So I think it might be in Deshaun Watson's best interests in a way to be suspended for at least a few games so there's not that uproar, there's not that backlash.
Well, the reason why I believe that is because of what happened with the other players that just had allegations that were even proved wrong later. You know, you talk about Ben Roethlisberger, even though he was found, he wasn't indicted.
4 games he was suspended for.
He was still suspended. So I think it's going to be somewhere along the lines of that.
But was it a civil suit or was it in front of the grand jury?
It was civil, Jim. It was civil.
Yeah.
So I mean, you're not going to suspend Watson 6 games for each individual, civil suit, but the NFL will do something. And that's just that's why I think that. I
think they got an issue because not being indicted by the grand jury, and it's a civil lawsuit, and as long as that goes, that's not something that affects the NFL. That affects Deshaun Watson, and I think that he can sue them for that because what if he comes out innocent in that?
You can't sue Jim, because it's in the bargaining agreement. That's part of the rules. The commissioner has a wide range of authority when it comes to disgracing the shield or making the NFL look bad. The players gave him that authority, so he can't sue. So that's why Ben Roethlisberger didn't sue, because there's really nothing they can do about it. It's part of the bargaining agreement that the NFL Players Union signed. So that's why. And until that agreement comes up, he has that type of power. So it is what it is. So Robert,
yeah.
Let's take a look at the young quarterbacks in the AFC. It's unbelievable how many young great quarterbacks they got there right now. That being said, is there ever going to be a repeat of a Super Bowl contender with all those great quarterbacks over there? I mean, you go from the ones that weren't just signed, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Herbert, and then you get to the ones, and you could throw a couple others in there, and the ones that were just recently signed, the Russell Wilsons, and of course you got the young kid from Cincinnati.
Joe Burrow.
I don't know if you want to count Mitch Trubisky in there, but it's sure an upgrade from any other quarterback they had. I mean, and you go to Jackson. I mean, there's so many great young quarterbacks there right now, but it's so competitive. Can you see a team actually going back and going to a Super Bowl twice in a row over there right now?
Well, Cincinnati had a good quietly. They signed 2 offensive linemen that they desperately needed, 2 guards there. One they got kind of listed as a center, Ted Karras or whatever from the New England Patriots, Alex Kapka from Tampa, and they desperately needed offensive line. They brought in Hayden Hurst. He's an upgrade over CJ Uzma. The tight end that they lost statistically, he's a better player. He's a younger player. There's a chance Cincinnati could get back. They brought back their cornerback there,
Eli Apple.
That everybody kind of bounced around the league, but he fit in really well there with that scheme. That is going to be an interesting division between Joe Burrow now, Deshaun Watson, and Cleveland, the 2 Ohio teams who have been train wrecks historically, are going to be two of the more interesting teams in the NFL this coming up season.
It's true.
So there's a really good chance that they can possibly get back to the Super Bowl. I probably wouldn't do it because I said that, that only one team has done it since the salary cap era in '94, and that's the New England Patriots to lose and come back.
Yeah.
Now, traditionally in modern times, the 2 quarterback names always linked together were Brady and Manning. And I think going forward, It's going to be Burrow and Herbert because they came out the same year.
Yeah.
And I think the Chargers getting Khalil Mack and being so close to the playoffs last year and being ready to take the next step anyway, I think that's where the great rivalry in the NFL is going to come out of next. I think it's going to be Burrow and Herbert.
Well, before you comment on that, Khalil Mack is now back with the Raiders. The Chargers traded him to the Raiders, so Khalil Mack is back with the Raiders right
I
now.
missed that with all the news, guys. When did that happen?
That's a few days ago, Jack. They
Wow,
traded,
I missed that.
Are you sure?
yeah.
Oh,
They
he got traded
I
to
didn't
the-
hear that. Did you
to the
hear that,
Chargers.
Jim?
I didn't hear that.
I heard the Chargers got
Yeah.
him and traded him for a couple draft choices. Check me out if I'm
I
missing.
want to check
Miss
that out. I
French.
didn't hear that.
The Raiders they traded Nagahu to the Colts,
Right.
Yannick Nagahu to the Colts, and then the Raiders picked up Chandler Jones
Right, but from
Yeah.
what I
from the
understood-
Arizona.
from what
And
I
they
read,
just signed Crosby, Max Crosby.
Yeah, they
$100
extended
million.
Crosby and released Nisbet, I think.
100 million.
Yes.
So anyway, so while
That's a great division too, by the way. AFC West.
While Jack is checking me out, make sure I'm correct. So you have
You're
the
wrong, Mac. He's with the Chargers.
He's with the Chargers?
Yeah.
It is.
It's all
well,
coming together, Mac. I know.
maybe it was on the table or something. I read something about it where they were trying to get him from the Chargers for a couple draft picks. But anyway,
Maybe, but I didn't hear that either.
So
That's what I was looking up.
So Robert,
Yeah.
with the AFC as strong as it is now, what would the quarterback situation in the NFC? They signed a 38-year-old Rodgers back. We signed a huge veteran. The Rams signs Matt Stafford to a 4-year, $40 million deal, and we got Tom Brady, who's 150. I mean, does the NFC have a chance in the near future to win a Super Bowl? I mean, never mind, contend. I mean, do they have a chance to even win a Super Bowl against a strong AFC division now? Conference.
Well, the Rams have had a pretty decent offseason. They've also re-signed Joseph Notebean. He's been doing spot duty for quite a few games at left tackle there. Andrew Whitworth retired, which I kind of thought he would. He's 41. And this other guy, Coleman Shelton at guard also. And then they brought in Allen Robertson. Now, they won the Super Bowl last year. And Stafford's not going to be that big a cap hit. They could possibly repeat. Possibly. Aaron Donald coming back. That secondary. They drafted well. Kudos to them. Big swingers there with this LA Rams team. So, yeah, the Rams, a little bit different situation with Tampa now. They did lose 2 offensive linemen, but they traded for Shaq Mason with the Patriots. And they signed Russell Gage from formerly of the Atlanta Falcons at wide receiver. They're still got a lot of holes there. Got a guys may come back. Gronk, I think he'll probably end up signing back. He's retired, semi-retired. Leonard Fournette's still out there. They may possibly bring him back if the price is right. But, Tampa and LA, they're two biggest teams there. I actually like what Green Bay done when trading away Devontae Adams for 2 picks. They say $20 million. And Rodgers knew about that. He knew about that. I read that he knew about that, and they pick up pick up 2 players for the price of one. Devontae Adams was going to cost him a fortune.
Yeah. I mean, for you talking, he wanted somewhere around 30 something million a year for a long time.
Like a quarterback.
And there's no way they could afford it, both him and Rodgers, for that long time and had a team. But what the Raiders did, I mean, listen, if the Raiders, if they just play, if their quarterback, his name is
Carr.
If he just has a good year, oh my God, that team is so talented. It's incredible what the Raiders have done and the AFC has done. It just seems to me that they're a step above the NFC this year. Maybe for
here's the thing, and I'm listening to you. It's still a team sport.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the best team, and I know you're saying the AFC is doing this and that, but they have to gel, first of all. And it's all about playing on the field. There are going to be some teams that, with all the picks they have and all the people that they've acquired, are going to be great. There's other teams that are going to still not be very good. Because look at a team like Tennessee, for example. I'm just using your team, Robert. They got Robert Woods, who was injured last year, but they are a very good team, and they play at a consistent level. They got talent and everything, and you can't discount them. But everybody's looking at the flash. That's why I always say free agency is fool's gold. Even with the trades and everything, it's the teams. The best teams are going to win. The teams that play together are going to win. It's not the teams that have got all these flashy free agents guys from the free agents. It's the guys that play as a team. It's still a team sport.
I agree, Jim.
Good point. I picked the Cleveland Browns to go to the Super Bowl last year, and they never gelled. That was the thing. They had all these great individual pieces, all these great players, but it just never came together.
Yeah, I was going to bring up the Dallas Cowboys for the last 5 years. Robert.
You had to go there.
Well, Washington used to do it every year for a little while.
Yeah.
They would put down these huge free agents, and then it would just fall apart with Washington.
But you're right. And that's but you're right. But it's the same thing with the Cowboys. They're getting guys, and they might flash for a year or two, but they're not the kind of guys they need. I'm kind of happy they showed some restraint in going for these big flashy free agents. It's guys that fit into your team concept.
Yeah.
That's the guys you want. Like we said with the Bengals, they got Eli Apple, who everywhere he's been an issue.
Kind of
and then they
bounced
get
around.
Chidobe Awuzie, and they win a Super Bowl. They didn't win it, but they got to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So
It's
not always about flash.
Speaking of fitting, I know I've heard, Robert, there are connections with the Colts and Baker Mayfield through relationships for the.
Yeah.
Does Baker Mayfield fit with the Colts in your opinion?
I thought it made sense when it first came about last week. Last Friday when all this came about. Actually Thursday. Remember Baker Mayfield does the preemptive. I did everything I could for Cleveland. Feel sorry for me, everybody. Farewell note when nobody's been even traded. And Chris Morton of ESPN said the issue was the team wanted a more mature quarterback. They wanted a grown-up. And so if you look at the Colts, Carson Wentz had leadership issues. That was reported. And consistency issues. So you're kind of getting you're trading away Carson Wentz for a smaller, more immature player in Baker Mayfield. So I'm thinking maybe they possibly hold out till after the draft and maybe trade for Jimmy Garoppolo and work, but he can't even practice guys until July. Jimmy Garoppolo. Maybe they do something with Matt Ryan.
Jack brought up the point. Matt Ryan, maybe. Jack brought up the point, though, right? Why would the San Francisco 49ers trade a guy that has been to the Super Bowl, that has experience, for a young guy that hasn't even played football yet? You're just going to turn the keys over to a Super Bowl contender, to a young guy that hasn't done anything yet. Do you think that the Sutton 49ers would do?
It's tough because you want to send that message that there's nobody looking over your shoulder. We've invested picks in Trey Lance. We've invested our future. The general manager, John Lynch, and Kyle Shanahan, they put it on the line for Trey Lance. And they've done that because, again, Garoppolo's getting surgery. Oh, he's already had surgery. He can't even throw until July, guys. It's still March.
Robert, he can kick, though. So, there's always an opening for a field goal kick.
I like Robbie Gould. He's doing pretty good, even at an older point.
Can I tell you something? We talked about Deshaun Watson. Believe me, the Indianapolis Colts were watching that situation carefully, and I bet there was a lot of anguish when he didn't go to the Atlanta Falcons, because they would have been all over Matt Ryan, the Indianapolis Colts. That would have been great for them, and it would have been great for Matt Ryan, because had Matt Ryan gone to Indianapolis, they'd be contending for the Super Bowl next year.
I agree.
So it was a missed opportunity for Matt Ryan as well. So I wonder what's going through Matt Ryan's head. On one end, he might be relieved he's with his career team, but at the other end, it may have been the best thing that could have happened to him going to Indianapolis.
I think it still may happen, guys. He was a $45 million cap hit. Now he's restructured. It's like 23.
Yeah.
And, Indianapolis, they're bargain hunters. They are bargain hunters when it comes to money and culture and everything. They still may do that. And maybe the Falcons draft a quarterback this year in the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
I just think
Jim.
we always talk about these quarterbacks, and then here's my theory on this. Sometimes we fall in love with certain backs. Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield. What do they have in common? They all played at Oklahoma as transfer. And who coached them? Lincoln Riley.
He's
overrated. I just think he's overrated.
But you know what else they have in common, Jim? They all got off to a good start in their NFL career. And after 1 year, we thought they were really looking good. And then somehow they hit a big bump on the road. What does that happen? What do they have? Like the RG3 effect, a great rookie season, and then they kind of fall off.
Well, here's my theory on it, and I could be totally wrong. What do the great quarterbacks have in common? And Robin and Mac had mentioned this. They are football, guys. Peyton Manning, 5 o'clock in the morning. He's the first one, and that was big for him. They say Mahomes has become more of a student of the game. They become students of the game. Some of these guys are not students of the games. They're students of everything off the field, but on the field, are they students of the games? Do they work hard at being the best that they can be? And that's a concern. And that's a little bit of how these offenses they came from in college are. They don't require them to do that.
Yeah.
But they're not standard offenses. And that hurts them when they get to the NFL, because the quarterbacks that are usually successful come from systems. We talk about Matt Jones in Alabama. That is not that kind of system. They have to learn how to play the game.
Well, it's great points by Jim, and we're going to find out in an investigative story if Lincoln Riley ever took Jim's soda or something when he wasn't looking, or whatever happened between him and Lincoln Riley. We're gonna have to figure that out. Robert, MLB still free agency, still alive a little bit. Your opinion? What was the biggest free agent acquisition this year and the best?
A lot of people will say it was Carrera that went to Minnesota. A lot of these analytic people will say that, but you know what? I'm saying, and I've said this for years, but poor Mets, they have the worst luck. But Max Scherzer with the Mets now puts them in as every site I look at, they're either number one or top 5 pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball. You put him with Jacob deGrom in a short series. That is a good 1-2 punch, guys. I'm telling you. Max Scherzer, if he stays healthy, now he played great last year. He was 7-0 with the Dodgers with a 1.98 ERA. So I think it's him with the Mets.
It's a good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. He's money. You know,
pitching does win ball games, especially at the end of the year. So, you're real quick, Robert. How did your Final Four prediction? How's that hanging up?
I've got to stop picking these local teams, man. I tell you, I'm just not going to pick anybody from this state to do anything. I think the Grizzlies will probably be a disaster in the playoffs. Okay, I had Tennessee.
He let Mac let you off the hook, Rob, by not asking about Julio Jones. So
that was a bad move there. Bad move there. Gave up too much, and Julio's probably or 2 or 3. Maybe Cleveland gets him. But no, I had Tennessee, Arizona, and Gonzaga and Auburn. My guess is my luck's been going. Auburn will probably get knocked out today. So
you got 3 or 4. That's good. You're still
good.
That's good. I hope Auburn don't get knocked out because that's one of my Final Four. And all 4 teams are.
Yeah, I like Bruce Pearl.
And my thing. So surprise team in the NBA, Robert, for the playoffs. I mean, last year I think it was Atlanta that surprised a lot of people. Who do you got for your surprise team?
Minnesota's a 7th seed, and they've practically doubled their wins from last year. That's hard to do in the NBA. You look at this guy, what's his name? Anthony Edwards.
Carl Anthony Towns. Look at the way he's coming on.
He was looked to be traded last year at this time, guys. Everybody, around February last year, where we're talking about trading Carl Anthony Towns, get him to Boston, and now they look good. D'Angelo Russell looks mature. They got a better record than the Lakers. Look at the stars the Lakers have on their team. You know, Patrick Beverly really helped them out with some defense and guile about him. They got a shot to get a home game in the first round. They're only 2 or 3 games out of the 4th seed, so that would give them a home game. So I gotta say Minnesota. They kind of get lost in the shuffle there with all the other teams.
Robert, Luka.
Who?
The Mavericks.
Oh yeah. Well, that Spencer Dinwiddie is one of the most underrated trades that nobody even talks about.
Yeah.
I know. What was the guy that changed his name? The NBA guy after getting a fight was our
Meta World Peace.
Yeah.
Yes, he went to Meta World Peace. I think if my name was Dimwitty, I would seriously look to change my name. I don't know.
It's a good luck name, man.
Yeah, maybe it is. Yes, Jack.
Go ahead, Jack.
When you think of that James Harden deal that Spencer Dinwiddie was part of, but Jared Allen of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Nets parted with him. He's injured right now.
Yeah,
Allen, he's really one of the best centers in the NBA.
I would totally agree.
All they had to do was stay pat the Nets. They never had to make the Harden deal to begin with, as it turned out, and they would have been better off, unless Ben Simmons turns into a great player, but remains to be seen.
Yeah.
We'll see. Robert, thank you for coming in, folks. Check out
Always
Sports.
great, Robert.
Hey.
Yeah, check out Sports Scope. He's all over the place. He has his sports weather, sports highlight tracker now, where he drives right to the area where the news is happening. Hopefully nothing happens out there in San Francisco because Robert will be driving for days to get there. Robert, thank you for coming in. We love having you on. Have a great day.
Man.
Have a good show, guys. See ya.
Hey, always great seeing you, Robert.
Robert always adds a little something. So, folks, we're going to take our first break today. And on the other side, I'm excited because my buddy Pags, the Phillies sports guy, will be coming up with us, and we'll be talking a little Phillies. sports, and a lot of things have happened in Philadelphia, guys. I mean, Philadelphia's kind of the forgotten one. You know how Pag says the media hates Philadelphia, and they don't even report on them anymore. In fact, they're concentrated on Pittsburgh this year and boycotting Philly news. So he'll be in and talk about that big story too. We'll be right back after these messages, folks.
When the job is done, this guy will be ready to dig into something mighty good to eat.
How do you handle a hungry man? The manhandlers.
One of the manhandlers is Campbell's vegetable beef. Gets a man-sized supper off to a good hot start. Good.
The manhandlers.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
I'm Chiquita Banana, and I'm here to say I am the top banana in the world today. Now you know the best bananas in the land, so don't slip up with an inferior brand. When it says Chiquita, it's a very good day to buy bananas.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. Happy place. A clean and happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place. Your kind of place.
McDonald's believes in getting food to your kids before they get to each other. Such good food, too. McDonald's famous French fries, triple thick creamy shakes, lean beefy cheeseburgers and hamburgers, icy cold soft drinks. And here's a plus, spill-proof lids on all beverages. Another plus, napkins that are big as a bib. Quality, cleanliness, extra care service. That's McDonald's. A total value that's unmatched anywhere.
McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place.
Your kind of place.
You talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac, Jack, and Jim. This week in sports, we are on every Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, legendary boxing writer, Hall of Famer Jack Hirsch, and Dallas Cowboy, two-time Super Bowl champion, the greatest defensive end in Dallas Cowboy history, the legend himself. And we're joined by everybody's favorite, Jamie Pags, the Philly sports guy, bring us some Philly news and other thoughts on what's going on in sports. So good morning, Pags. How you doing? Good to see you.
Good morning, guys. How are you? And
morning,
see, look, I was able to work out the whole hours situation this time.
Yes.
Good morning, Pags. Pags, now that Jim is retired, is he a legend in Philly? I imagine he wasn't too well liked back in the day.
See, we always thought of him as a Buffalo Bill.
Pardon me? Pardon me
I
that?
thought he was a Buffalo Bill. We don't remember your
A
lot of people.
And I always thought of you like your daughter, a Dallas Cowboy fan, so we're even.
Yes,
There
yes.
you go,
But,
Bob.
Everybody not playing the Cowboys back then didn't really want to think about Jim Jeffcoat back then anyway, because he was a troublemaker. So Pags, some interesting news on the Phillies just happened. You signed another power hitter, Nick Castellanos, to join Schwarber and Bryce Harper, giving you one of the most power-hitting trio combination in baseball. You guys are going to try to outslug everybody this year, Pags.
Well, you know what? You might as well, if you're not going to be able to stop anybody, you better outscore everybody. And that's kind of the thought process they decided to take this year. Schwarber was not as exciting a signing for me as he was for everybody else. Like I said, I know he's a 240 hitter, career 240 hitter, has only had one home run every 18 at bats. So it's not as exciting. He had a good year last year, and hopefully it carries over. But I thought they gave him a lot of money. Castellanos, however, was a little bit different of a situation.
Neither guy plays good defense, too. So that's a factor that comes into it.
Yeah, that's going to come into play. They're going to wind up in like the 8th and 9th inning, getting, after they take that 4th at bat, probably both have to come out for defensive purposes, for bench guys that actually play better defense. But at that point, we should be up a few runs. So hopefully it works that way.
Yeah, I mean,
I still have a little concern for their left-handed when they go up against left-handed pitching.
Well, at least you got a team that can score a lot of runs if they're all clicking, and it's at least it's a plan. It's not a standoffish plan, and they're being active. And you can't, as a Philly fan, you got to be a little bit excited about that. They're trying to do something over there, offering some big contracts.
Absolutely. Are they putting all their chips in on this year? Not yet, but they have. They still are a few $1 million away from the luxury tax, so they still can do more. And I think that they're going to get the season started, see how things roll, and start to tweak because of that. Because I still think they obviously, but they're going to need a backup catcher. You're not going to be able to have Real Muto do 162 games behind the plate. So he's going to have to switch out with the DH or playing first base and things like that. There's going to be a couple of unique defensive lineups, I feel, to just kind of see what happens out there this year. But I do expect that this team should score somewhere in the neighborhood of 7 runs a game.
Yeah, if everything works out right, it's very possible. Let's look at the Eagles real quick. pretty quiet this year. They had that big signing with Reddick, gives you a linebacker with good pass rush. Cox, as I told you, did go back to the Eagles. He restructures his contract for 1 year. Darius Slayton did the same thing. He restructured his contract to free up some money. You got your young quarterback, and the Eagles are not going after any of the big flashy guys. There were rumors about Watson. I didn't think that was going to happen, but it puts you guys in a pretty good position this year. I mean, Dallas didn't improve. The Giants are the Giants. The Washington Commandos there for some reason went after Carson Wentz, and that doesn't make them any better, really. So the Eagles are in a real good position this year.
Well, I mean, I'm interested that you say that you don't think that Wentz made them any better. I mean, I'm happy that Wentz is going to be able to throw the Eagles some more balls now. But that being said, I thought that was a really good trade for Washington because they really got him for a song. I mean, they didn't get him for really much of anything at all.
Oh, wait. 2 number 3 picks. They swapped number 2s, and they picked up 2 number 3 draft choices, meaning basically they are getting a couple of starters out of this.
I mean, they are. I mean, if they pick good starters in the third round, you're talking the Colts. You're talking the Colts. But I'm saying that really was a good trade for Washington.
But here's my question to you, Pags, because you'd have more insight on this. What is Wentz's deal? This is the third team in what? 3 years?
3 years. It's third team in 3 years. He only played 1 year in, Indianapolis. I mean, I feel so after the Eagles won the Super Bowl and he came back, I felt that every pass he threw, he was trying to win the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And the team kind of picked up on that, and they didn't really respond really well to that. Broke his back. Next thing you know, Nick Foles is in there, and they go on a little bit of a run. If Alshon Jeffrey catches the ball before the 2-minute warning, or they don't even call that play, they didn't need to call that play and race the clock. They could have just sat on it until the 2-minute warning and regrouped and gone the last 25 yards. They didn't. They threw that play. It went through Alshon Jeffrey's hands. He,
yes,
interception. Next thing you know, we're not playing the Rams, and it could have been a rematch in the Super Bowl. We don't know that because the Saints wound up winning that game. That being said, when he went to Indianapolis, he had a pretty good season, but the fact that they quit on him that quickly, I think is more indicative of how he is in the locker room and how that locker room did not respond to how he was being a leader.
So saying that, how do you think it's going to be in the Washington locker room? Because that's more dysfunctional than any locker room at this point.
Sometimes, chaos does well in chaos.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it can't be any worse, than what was happening with Heineke.
Common sense. He went to Indianapolis to Frank Reich, his offensive coordinator with the Eagles, his mentor, a guy who wanted him to come to Indianapolis, who nurtured him, and he couldn't cut it there. So now you throw him at the deep end of the pool of Washington and you expect him to swim? Come on, guys. I mean, it's common sense. I mean, logically, he's not going to flourish at Washington. Anything's possible. But he's
as you've seen, defensive linemen are fighting each other. He says something to the wrong person, we might see him getting hit on.
Well, not only that, but I mean, think about it now. They only have him for 2 years.
Yeah.
They only gave up 2 third-round picks, really.
Yeah.
And, I mean, ultimately, I don't think it was a bad trade for Washington. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they have somebody who can be behind quarterback for 2 seasons and try to figure it out. And if he can't figure it out, as we've learned this year, quarterbacks are now expendable.
Yes, you're right.
Pags, I think with all the quarterbacks available out there, when they took Wentz, it was a bad move. Wentz chokes. I'm sorry, he chokes. And that's what Wentz does. And it's
that's good for the Eagles.
Yes, yeah, it is. It's good for the Giants, it's good for the Cowboys too. But I mean, if we're talking about good for the the Commandos there. I don't get the move at all. I really don't. And
well, I'm just saying, instead of giving up a first-round pick or anything like that, as far as the trade went, it's not a bad trade for Washington. Is it going to work out? It may not, but I don't think it mattered. Washington's is so dysfunctional. This was one of the better moves that they've made.
This may cost Rivera his job. I mean,
I don't know if Rivera has anything to do with it because it's he's not the GM, is he?
No, Mayhew's the GM, isn't he? Martin Mayhew.
If Rivera didn't want Wentz wasn't going to come to Washington. I got to believe this is a Rivera move. A Rivera.
Well, they called everybody. They called every. I mean, that was.
Yeah, that's what they said. Yeah, he's right.
They called everybody. They wanted to find out what everybody was asking for their quarterback.
And they researched him with Joe Gibbs of all people. They had Joe Gibbs research Carson Wentz, which I'm kind of curious because are they running the same offense that Gibbs ran? And they're not. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's they're gonna the Eagles are gonna call up what was that coach that sent you guys, like you guys were 7-0 and you ended up 7-9? What's his name again? Yeah, the Eagles will be calling Kotite too to check out somebody next time they
that was weird.
You said that there hasn't been another name that's been a big splash other than Riddick. I have a sneaky suspicion that they are going to go after Julio Jones. And I know that there was a report that came out that they talked about that they were going to release him.
Yeah.
And I thought initially that they were going to go after Ridley. And obviously no sense in trying to go after him right now because he ain't going to be playing anytime real soon.
Yeah.
That being said.
But he could hang out in Atlantic City.
Yeah, he could.
He could if he wanted to. I feel that now going after Julio Jones, if they were, I still feel they need a good number 2.
Yeah,
and Julio Jones right now would be a good number 2. Even if he's only there for 8 games a season, he's got to be reasonably priced. You can't go crazy on the money, but to be able to tutor this young wide receiver core, even for a season, I think would be very beneficial.
Is it
great number 2?
I mean, then bring him in as a wide receiver, coach. I mean, I
agree with Mac.
Why waste your time with a wide receiver who will go to Hall of Fame eventually, but he's all done. Julio Jones is done.
And plus, Pax, you got all those draft picks.
Yeah,
we do have all those draft picks. I first of all, I know better to know that I don't trust them to draft a wide receiver. In most cases.
They drafted a great one in Devontae Smith.
They did. They did. Guys, 1 out of 3 is okay.
Jamar Chase was the talk of the NFL last year with the Bengals, but if you flip-flopped him with Devontae Smith, put Smith on Cincinnati, chasing the Eagles, Smith would have been the big talk amongst, the young receivers coming up.
I agree.
And I still feel they need a number 2 receiver. That Jalen Reagor is not that guy. And for even one season, as long as the money's right, I think Julio Jones is a good answer there. And I feel like that the person who would benefit most from that signing is Jalen Reagor. I feel like Jalen Reagor got a lot of bad publicity last year. I mean, he was doing the kickoffs. I mean, obviously, his kickoff muff or punt muff in the Tampa Bay game, really they put as the ultimate turning point because the Eagles were starting to come back, and then they lost that. They wound up scoring a touchdown on that punt, and that was the big turning point in the game. I don't know that we were going to win either way, but we were making a comeback, and now we lost that edge. That being said, he's been maligned here in Philly, saying that, we don't want him, we got to get rid of him. I think he's still a good receiver, and I feel that with not being in the number 2 spot. I feel like there's too much pressure in the number 2 spot. If you get him a real number 2 and you put him in the number 4 spot, because I still think Quez Watkins is the best number 3 just because of the speed that he's got. You've got 4 wide receivers, the 4th option being open all the time, because the one thing that Jalen Reagor is able to do is get separation. All of a sudden, he doesn't have all that pressure on him, and I think he'd start to excel. It's kind of like, and I kind of look at Julio Jones as like Alshon Jeffrey. I don't need him to do anything other than get those 50-50 balls and not need to do everything. He's not like he's on the Falcons. I'm not trying to get him into the Hall of Fame with our play here. I'm trying to just help out our other receivers and give somebody who's a tall body with a little bit of a name that you have to kind of respect on that side and be able to do a little something. And like I said, if I get him for half of a season, because the other half of the season he's broken down, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know.
He would be a good fit. I don't think he would be good because you got to know his mentality. Does he still think he's going to be the guy? Unless they told him up front, hey, you're not going to be the guy. You're going to be an option. And Devontae Smith is the guy. And how would he react to that? That's
I mean, I don't know, but he wasn't the guy in Tennessee.
And
Jim,
he really didn't do anything.
Jim, you've been around enough, elite players to understand it's a little bit of an ego thing. If Julio Jones felt his job was to mentor Devontae Smith to a large degree, he might embrace that role and really push Devontae Smith to try to be a great player and to be a step behind Devontae.
I disagree. I think sometimes great players are a deterrent to a team at that stage in their career as a part of helping them. It depends on what kind of player you're getting. There's still some good receivers out there that would be better at number 2.
I agree if the Eagles are willing to spend the money. Jim, everybody says, I hear this all the time, oh, he'd be great to help the players. Well, who says he wants to help the players?
Exactly. That's my point. And I've seen that.
To play football. He wants to continue.
You know what? I don't look at him as having the same type of ego as some of the other guys, like Antonio Brown, or even a DK Metcalf, who I feel like is a little bit of a cancer in the locker room, even though he's such a physical specimen. I feel like he's a little bit of a cancer in the locker room. He's a little too vocal. He gets he starts to get under skin. He's half of the reason why they had to trade the quarterback. So I'm not sure that he's got that same type of mentality. Now, of course, I'm not in the locker rooms with these guys. So
Jim, when you played, you played under some superstars that are in the Hall of Fame. I mean, these guys were great. And I don't think every one of them wanted to take you and have talks with you all the time. And
that's my point.
I mean, I don't think, Randy White's not going to go to Jim and say, something, you're a really good kid. I'm going to help you out and help you. I mean, Jim had to go to him and ask him probably.
But it was a different time because we mentioned this earlier in the show. That was a different time because Randy White knew I was going to be playing next to him for the next 5 or 6 years. Ed Jones, too tall.
And not only that, they watched you in practice. Are you really committed? Are you really want to play this game? I mean,
and I'm not saying anything about Julio Jones' personality, but that's tough to look at Devontae Smith over there. Devontae Smith is the guy in Philly, and we all know that. Will he accept the role? And they have to tell him that, hey, Devontae Smith's our guy. You are the second option or third option. You are not the guy. We're going to try to keep you healthy. And that's the thing. We're going to try to keep you healthy and keep you getting paid. That's all really. And you got to help him. And you've been in the league. You help him what you see.
Jim, there's a difference involved. Devontae Smith is with the Eagles first. If Julio Jones was there first and then they brought Devontae Smith on board, maybe Julio Jones would try to hang on. I think it's easier to embrace your role when you come aboard and someone else is.
But you got to let him know what his role is. And even
Right.
with me, with the Cowboys, when we got Charles Haley, Jimmy Johnson called me in his office and said, okay, this is going to be your role. We're going to extend your career, which he did. And this is why. And that's the thing. And that's what they have to bring Julio Jones. If they bring him to the Eagles and say, we're going to extend your career, you're not going to be playing as much as you have in the past. We want to keep you healthy and get ready for the playoffs runs. And that's the thing. You can't just go in there and say, oh, this guy's going to be a great tutor for Devontae Smith. Because
you're right. I am not able to say that with any assuredness. But I do know that he's got to understand as well that he's the one that played hurt, that was hurt all season. He's the one that decided he didn't want to be in Atlanta anymore, where he was the man.
Yep.
So he went to Tennessee, who was supposed to be going after a chip. They didn't get there, mostly because he wasn't able to get on the field. So it's a whole different world now.
Yeah.
And listen, you should be well rested. If you are, this is a now show me year. I feel like if you want to be able to extend your career and do whatever, you're going to need a really good year. You need to stay healthy. You need to show that you're a good teammate. You need to show all these things, because divas are not, that nobody wants another Antonio Brown on their team. And I've never heard anything bad about Julio Jones like that.
Antonio Brown is not even part of the conversation when it comes to that. He's just a whack job.
Well, let's talk about quickly the one guy the Eagles lost. I mean, Joe Flacco. That's a blow, right? Going back to my Jets. I can't believe they have Flacco for second go-round.
That goes
there. You know what? We actually made out in that deal, too, because I think we traded him for a sixth and we got a fifth.
Yes, there you go. See, look at that.
Because he started the game, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Look at that. Pags, one more thing about Philly news, of course. The 76ers have won 2 in a row with, lately Embiid's playing great. Last game, Harden has the, 14 assists or whatever, 12 to 14 assists, scores 24. Again, Philadelphia is getting ready for that run, and the East is jam-packed. Is not enough being said about the Eagles, 76ers bench. Isn't this where, you start relieving people during the playoffs? You look to have a strong bench. What is your opinion on the 76ers bench? Are they good enough to give these guys breaks and not lose the game for you guys? Because when the playoffs come and you're going up against, the Bucks, and you're going up against the Heat, and you're going up against, these great teams in the East right now, everything's going to matter. The Nets got a pretty good bench. The Bucks benches are no slouches either. Do you think the 76ers match up there?
No. I feel like that in total, they're going to be getting 34 minutes from their bench, which is not a lot, which means that you're going to wind up getting 40 minutes from Embiid, 40 minutes from Harden a game. And that's, and now you got the other 3 guys. I mean, Maxi's young, so I think that he can handle it. And Tobias Harris is going to have to step up some, but, and Matisse Thybulle is going to be like the one guy that goes back and forth. Like I said, you'd like to get from your bench, you'd want to get in the playoffs somewhere close to 60 to 72 minutes. And I'm talking about minutes from all 5 of the players. But the fact that we're at half that is going to be by the time we get to the 3rd round, if we make it that far, it's going to be they're going to be winded, and it's going to mean that they have to do very situational play. And you got to hope that the bench will come through. Korkmaz, like I said, he's hot or not, you know what I mean? And then you've got Shake Milton, who can give a little bit of time, but he's a little bit of a ball hog. So he doesn't play well with Harden and Embiid out there. Those are some of the issues that you're running into in the offseason. The Sixers need to find really a true number 3. I don't look at Tobias Harris as their number 3 option, although he does have some good games and has been playing a little bit better. But they need to find a true number 3, and they need to find a 6th man. Yeah. And right now, I don't feel like the Sixers have a 6th man.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no 6 in the 76ers. It's a sad thing. What are your thoughts about the NFL free agent? We were talking earlier, Pags. You grew up, you're not that much younger. I mean, older, I should say, than me. Really younger, but I'm messing with you. We grew up, we knew our teams. There was not a lot of free agency. We grew with our teams. We invested in our teams. We went through the bad years, celebrated with one. That's all gone, Pags. It's a shame, I think, for the newer generation on where they're not going to have that same type of feeling we did. We knew the teams we played against, and we knew their players as well as we knew ours. And it was more of a rivalry. It was more of a team sport, and the fans were all involved. It's almost impossible to do now, Pags.
I hear you, and you have to be so well involved with the team to be able to understand who's on the team and such like that. I mean, the Flyers are going through this, not to switch it from football to hockey, but the Flyers are going through that right now where a lot of the fans don't even recognize who's on the team, have no idea. And, the fact that they're playing poorly, nobody cares either.
I wasn't going to mention the Flyers, Pax, but Claude Giroux was traded to the Florida Panthers. He played the second most games in Philadelphia Flyer history. Was that really necessary? Why not let him just finish out his career with the Flyers? He's a Flyer legend. Unless he really wanted to trade, then you do it from out of a courtesy. But you get the feeling that the Flyers kind of wanted to move on as well.
You know what? I feel very weird about that trade in general. I haven't even spoken about it yet, and I'm sure that people are going to get to me today. When I saw the entire trade happen, I happened to be at a birthday party for my nephew, and he's 30 years old, and he's a big Flyers fan too. And I ran down, and I'm like, like they just traded him, and then we got the report back that they traded him and a couple other people for a first round next year, like in 2024, a third round in 2023, and one player. And I'm like, why did we trade him? So then the report came out that he requested the trade and to be able to just kind of move on. Now, that tells me a couple of things. One, he's a rental. He's not going to re-sign with Florida. So he may be back. So this may have been a trade of two players for our one player and those picks. I don't know. I don't feel as happy that he put the team like that. It was like, oh, I will only go to Florida. I won't let you trade me anywhere else. And you got to make this deal happen. Truth of the matter is he could have played the rest of his career in Philly. They could have re-signed him for something small. I think that he's got a rental this year. I'll be surprised if he doesn't come back. If he signs somewhere else and he starts playing the Chara game, because it looks like Chara's bouncing around from team to team to team, and every team he goes to is not anywhere better. So I'm interested to see how that all works out. I felt from when I saw the trade, it was like, well, why trade him then? Why only give that up?
Max, you said something that's thought-provoking for all the team sports. Could a player ever speak to management and they come to an agreement, you'll be a rental and we're going to sign you as a free agent in the offseason, so we're going to get our assets? That's a form of collusion going on between the player and the team. That's really thought-provoking, and should that be allowed if it ever went on?
Well, it's happened before.
I mean, you can't help but say, well, he's got all of his roots here in Philly. His kid only knows Philadelphia. Are they moving down to Miami full-time, or are they going to stay up here? He goes down there, he plays the rest of the season, sees what they do. If they win a cup, well, then there's a lot more going on that it's possible he stays. If they don't win the cup, it's just a rental, and who knows? You could come back here, and it wouldn't surprise me. It really wouldn't surprise me.
Well, you saw it happen in basketball. LeBron James goes to the Miami Heat. But eventually, where was his heart at? It was in Cleveland. He goes
He
back.
spent 4 years at Miami. It wasn't just being traded in the middle of the season.
But he still went there, won his championships. Cleveland got his salary cap, and they got all their stuff in order. Where does he go? Back to Cleveland, where he's from.
But Jack does make a great point. I mean, if you think about it, if the team and the player is saying, "Hey, listen, we trade you, we get these players and maybe some draft picks, and we'll bring you back next year," I don't know if that's legal or not. And that's a great point Jack's making. I mean, if we're just saying a 1-year rental,
as long as you don't have it in writing, unless it's two guys. I mean,
right? Yeah, because ultimately, he's still got to make the decision.
Yes.
He could be down in Florida and be like, "Wow, I really like it here. What we talked about, nah."
No, that's what the implications,
exactly right.
guys. If you're a player and you waive your no trade clause based on the team telling you they're bringing you back next year, that they're going to give you this and that in the contract, and then they go back on their word and you don't have it in writing, it is a verbal commitment. I mean, there are implications on this.
That's
but you can't ever report that.
Yeah.
Now you want to talk about collusion. Hey, he said he was going to come back to us. Of course, he can't ever say that.
Yeah,
you can't ever say, "Hey, listen." There was reports that they were talking to the Avalanche, that the Rangers gave a bigger package than anybody else, that the Bruins wanted him and stuff like that. All these different teams wanted him, but ultimately, it came out yesterday that the Flyers didn't even talk to any of them because Florida was always the one spot he wanted to go. That was where he was going to do the no trade clause to Florida, which tells me he just wanted to go in the sun. He's got a vacation for the kids. They're bringing the kids to the beach, and he gets to play out the rest of this season there, playing good hockey. I mean, Florida is playing pretty well. Catches back up with Bobrovsky. Bobrovsky is still the goalie down there. They got a pretty good team. Does he make them enough to get past the Lightning? I don't think so. But at least he gets to go into the playoffs this year rather than sitting on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And then you worry about next year, next season. You know what I mean? That's kind of how that works. Is he going to be back? I can't guarantee that because they haven't spoken to me about it. Should he be back? I'd like to see him back here again for a $3 million deal per year to finish out his career. But if he goes and plays somewhere else, then he goes and plays somewhere else. This team is a train wreck right now of the Flyers. And that can't be denied. And does he deserve to be on this team? No, he doesn't. He's been a great player for us. He's done everything.
I totally disagree. What do you mean, does he deserve to be on the team? No, or does the team? Come on, man. I mean, you're talking about like this guy deserves to do whatever he wants. He's a Flyer. He goes through the bad times and good times, just like all the other professional athletes did.
He's still always going to be a Flyer.
Let's not hold him up. Let's not hold him up like he's a god and that he shouldn't have to play on a bad team. Come on, man. I mean, that's ridiculous. You have a lot of great players that end up on bad teams and they have to suffer through it. I mean, what are we saying here? I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if they did that for him and he wants to do that, great. But let's say he doesn't deserve to be on a bad team. Who deserves to be on a bad team?
I feel that the Flyers as an organization, I've spoken about this multiple times, where I feel that the executive portion of the Flyers are the issue here. That because of what's going on above them, above the coaching staff, is now eking its way out onto the ice. And
I don't disagree with you, Pax, but let's not hold this guy up like he's immortal. All right. Yeah. Nobody deserves to be in a bad team, but just because he is great and it was a great Flyer doesn't mean that he gets a special dispensation in sports. I mean, it is what it is. But as it is, there is collusion happening. I think Jack has figured out. Jack, I want you to write a story on that and have it ready to go tomorrow. We're going to run it. We're just going to run it. So,
listen, that happened with Adonis Chapman with the Yankees. That's how they got. We talked about Gleyber Torres early in the show. They traded Chapman at midseason to the Cubs. They got the great prospect Gleyber Torres. Chapman went to the Cubs. The Cubs win the World Series with him as the close. And Chapman in the offseason signs with the Yankees as a free agent and comes right back. That's your rental.
Yes, there you go. So Jack, he's an investigative reporter. Everybody, I don't think he's not.
I'm all over it.
Yeah. Pags, I know you got a lot of great stuff coming up. And let me tell you, if you love Philly sports, folks, for those who are watching, I will watch later. There is none better in the business. This man is all over Philly sports. He's the best at it. I don't care. You can talk about Philly voice and you can talk about all the rest. They don't hold the candle to Pags.
He's really good, I have to admit, for a Philly guy.
Yes, he's one of the best. And we'll be seeing each other soon in person, 27 June, which will be excellent to have us all together. And
I'm not arm wrestling you, Pags.
That's all right. That's all right. Like I said, I've beaten bigger guys than you. And it's surprising when I do. It's surprising when I do. It even surprises me sometimes. So,
Jim, I was going to sell that as part of the benefit, and now you just messed that all up.
I'm sorry.
We were going to even let you cheat. We were going to cheat. We were going to give Pags one of those rubber, the foam things that move.
Oh, there you go.
Forget it now. No, it's all ruined now. So anyway. Pags, again, thank you for coming. We love having you.
And I do have to say, because you did, I was listening before I came on here. My Elite Eight is still 100% intact.
Excellent, dude. Excellent.
I don't have everybody in the Sweet 16. I did. So far, I've got 5 of the 8 that are there, but my entire Elite Eight is still intact.
Well, that's because you picked against the Red Hens, and I told you the Red Hens were not scary at all. And
the Blue Hens,
right? Them and the sometimes they call
me. I'm gonna pick against Villanova right up the street. I don't live in Tennessee.
Right. That's funny. Pags, thanks for coming in. We'll see you again Friday. I'll be in touch with you off air. You know that. So
all right, have a great week.
Have a great day.
All right.
Oh my God, I love having that guy on. He's a rush. Folks, real quick break, maybe 2-minute. We'll be right back. We got some more sports to cover. Get Jim's opinion on something that me and Jack and Doc talked about. And Jack made a couple valid points. And we're going to see if Jim agrees with him or maybe doesn't. But a very interesting conversation coming up right after these messages, folks. So please stick with us.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again.
Alex is just...
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
A little Sweet Georgia Brown music for y'all back home. If you ever watched the Harlem Globetrotters, or even if you didn't, anybody that knows basketball knows that song. It's a great song.
No, guys, I once saw
my childhood with a lot of your stuff.
I once went to see the Globetrotters. Now, I know certain of the gimmicks are rehearsed, the ball handling, the tricks, but one of them was kind of like taunting the opposition, having fun from mid-court, and he throws in a one-handed shot from mid-court. I mean, how do you stage that? How do you practice that? That's unbelievable to make any shot from mid-court as part of your routine. I was flabbergasted.
I remember Meadowlark Lemon in England hit like 8 half-court hook shots in a row. I mean, I have no idea how they did some of the stuff they did. It was
No question. Yeah.
I mean, I know they started in the beginning as a legitimate basketball squad. I know that. A lot of people wanted to see the Harlem Globetrotters play, one of the NBA great teams. And, if they really pure basketball without the traveling and all the gimmicks, I think they could have held their own. I mean, with some of the players they had, I think they could have. And they would have had to get, game ready again, which I don't know if, some of the older ones could have or not. But they did have an unbelievable chemistry and could make unbelievable shots. And I don't know how they did half of the stuff they did. I really don't. It was amazing to watch them on TV, and I had to go see them live too. It was a great time.
I know we're all from the same era, basically, but we saw the golden age of sports.
Yeah,
in the golden age of sports as kids, and then later on, we saw a lot of things that the younger generation will never understand.
Well, guys, it's oversaturated today, and the case in point is going to be, we talk about the NCAA tournament. All people are talking about are the men. The women's tournament is going on.
I watch it.
This is unfair to the women to hold at the same time as the men. Very unfair. Okay, because let's be honest about it. Outside of family, friends, our very tiny circle, no one is paying attention to the women in comparison to the men right now in the NCAA tournament.
Well, let me tell you, I did watch a couple of female NCAA games. And one of the games I watched, the team was leading 40-something to 4 at halftime.
And South Carolina.
Oh my God, that was a shame. And when you are on TV, ESPN is covering it. When you are on TV and you have games like that, it ended up, I think, when I look back up, it was 79-19, and that you have games like that. It kind of It kind of doesn't make the NCAA women's tournament look that great. I know Jim is very ingrained in that because of his family.
Yeah, my daughters. Yeah, but
so
Princeton's a prime example of a team. Is same thing happened in the women's game. Princeton beat a higher ranked team, and then also Belmont. They beat Oregon. I mean, so they're having their upsets too.
Yeah. So
but the point about it, Jim, the point I'm trying to make, I'm watching a lot of basketball this time of the year, but I'm basically watching the men's NCAA tournament, maybe a tiny bit the NBA at the same time, but I'm really into the men's tournament. And if they ran the women's tournament after the men were done, you're still on a high about the men, and I'd be more likely to watch the women's games.
And I understand you make a good point, but logistically, I don't know if they can do it.
Yeah,
because then you'd run the women's tournament in April because some kids are out in May. In Arizona State, we were out in May.
Yeah, that's hard for them to do something like that. I think they do that out of necessity more than an option, as Jim is saying, because of their schedule in college and stuff. And I don't know what the answer to that would be. Unless
do it before the men's tournament, and it would be a lead-in into the men's, and maybe it would have a little interest that way.
So you're saying that you start the women's season earlier, because then you started in what? They started in November. You'd start in October. And I don't know.
Agree. Yeah, that's a better
because
idea.
you have other sports going on, volleyball, just like women. You have various sports going on in the.
It's a tough. It's tough.
Basketball is considered a winter sport, correct?
It's a tough situation. It really is a tough situation, and that will always be. I think. I don't think that will ever change. You're gonna watch the men's over the women's unless you got a real vested interest. But I have watched a couple games. Just to let you know, Jim. I have been watching them.
I watch them, and I talk to my daughters about them. Obviously, they played D1 basketball, so it is things that we talk about, and we even have a little pool going on with the women's side. I'm winning it, and my daughters, I told them they weren't that good because I'm winning it. And I have a better insight on.
So let me get this straight, Jim. You're the only guy I know. You don't bet on the men's NCAA tournament, but you're plunked on.
I don't bet on them. I'm in pools, but I don't bet on
pools on the women's, but not on the men's. Okay.
No, I'm in the men's. But I don't want to admit that because I'm doing bad.
Yeah.
Jim's got the inside information on the women's side. So Jim, me and Jack and Doc talked about, of course, we talk about the Ukraine now and then when it affects sports, and a champion, a world-class fighter, Lomachenko, is right now over in the Ukraine, and he's requested time to leave the army. He went there, and once you get there, you don't leave to train for a title match. Jack thinks that maybe he should be let go. He's only one guy, and this might uplift the country if he wins a title belt in Australia. And me and Doc kind of think we understand what Jack is saying, but we think that if you start allowing people to leave for different reasons, it's not military anymore. They're actually evading his country. It's not like, he's going somewhere else to fight, and, family and friends are there. And we think that he shouldn't be let go, that he's there to fight the invasion off, and that's way more important than any title match he could have. And Jack again brings up the point, listen, he's getting older, and this may be his only chance at a title match, depending how long the invasion and war goes on. What are your thoughts on something like
Jim, that? And just one quick thing. He was in Greece when the invasion started, and he went back to his home country to be part of the resistance. So he could have stayed out of the country and never went back to Ukraine, but he elected to go back.
So what are your thoughts, Jim?
And here's my thing on that is he wouldn't be the first one who's done this. And obviously, it's a unique situation in Ukraine with the invasion, but it would be uplifting, I think, to the Ukrainian people if they would allow him to do that. I allow that because that would give him obviously some national pride. It's a difficult situation from the standpoint. Now, why does he get to go away or go do what he wants to do? And we're fighting. I mean, they bombed a school with 400 people in it yesterday. And why does he not have to make the sacrifices that we have? But he has. He sacrificed because, just like Jack said, he didn't have to come back from Greece, but he decided to come back. And what he's saying is this would give us some national pride. And actually, it would help their cause, too, in Ukraine. I think it would help them because more people are involved with sports. And they would say, wait a minute, this is serious. This guy's country is there. He came back. And obviously, after the fight, he would go back and be a part of the resistance.
He can bring attention more to what's going on. It even bothered me, Mac, Jim, cases like that in the NFL. A player commits to the military and he has something like 5 years left, and he gets drafted by an NFL team. And if the military says, no, you have to serve out your 4 or 5 years or whatever, they're basically ending his NFL career, unless it's a guy like a Roger Staubach who's blue chip, who you know is going to get to play later. But if a guy's drafted like in the fifth or sixth round, he's not an elite type draft choice, and they're basically ending the kids.
David Robinson was an elite basketball player.
But the elite guys are going to find their way back.
Yeah, and what's his? He just
the guy on the Lions was drafted.
Villanueva, the offensive lineman that used to play for Pittsburgh.
Jim.
What about the guys who didn't? The military wouldn't allow them out, and they never.
Wouldn't allow.
Wouldn't allow, and they never wound up back in the league. You're
right. You're right.
Jim, your father would be cursing you out right now. Listen, if you make it there's not a draft in the NFL in the United States forces anymore. You volunteer to do this. They invest time and they invest money for you to go to school and do this kind of stuff. So if you're just going to let anybody get out just because they have a better option, whether it be in sports or anything else, then you just lost all that money in that investment. And as far as let me finish, Jim. As far as Lomachenko goes, all right. So suppose he wins the fight, and while he wins the fight, your wife gets killed or your daughter gets killed. How uplifting is that? You can't, to me, you can't allow when your country's being invaded. Now we're talking about his country being invaded. We're not talking about a war on a different shore. The United States has never been invaded since, the British did it back in the 1800s. When this is happening, I don't care if you can go and get an Oscar nomination and win a movie of the year and become fighter of the year. Right now, your country is being invaded. Kids are dying, your family's dying, your friends are dying. And if you're going to allow a guy to go fight a fight for 2 months, whatever it is, till he gets ready, and then say you can come back, there may not be a country to come back to. And that
is true, but
and to me, that little pump you get about Lomachenko winning a title and him bringing attention to something everybody already knows about in the world is far and lesser a thing than you standing there and the school gets blown up. Lomachenko wins the title and your kid is dead. I don't think that has anything to do with the other, and I think you're wrong. I think Jack is wrong. Right now,
I disagree because I think it uplifts because they need something positive. They're in a war, and you're right. People are dying. They need something.
That's going to uplift you that he won a lightweight championship while your wife just got killed.
He didn't have to come back.
Alexander Usyk, one of the heavyweight champions, he's in the same situation in Ukraine right now.
He did win. He did go back, Jim. That's the point.
He did, and he did it out of what? National pride.
Right.
He did it out of national pride.
And because
he didn't have to go back.
And not just national pride, Jack, because Jim, because his family is being shot and put in prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And I agree with that, but he went back because he has pride in his country. in his
more than that.
mind, he's trying to do something positive.
It's
If
more
they
than
say
that.
no, he probably won't do it. But
It's more than that, Jim. Let me tell you something. In World War II, more husbands and fathers that did not have to go to war volunteered and left their families at home because they did not want the Nazis invading the country. They wanted to meet them over there. Ultimate sacrifice, right? Players went. Hall of Fame players went to a different country, volunteered to go fight in World War II. This is even worse than that. They're invading and trying to take their country. So to me, I get what Jack's saying. I get what you're saying too, but it is so small compared to what's happening over there right now. It's like a flea on top of a dog. And that's what I think about it. I don't know.
And you have the right to your opinion, but I'm
Yeah.
with Jack. If they said, if the people in power say, yes, you can do this, then who are we to argue over that?
Oh, I
You can say it's right or wrong.
You know, societies, when they're down and out, they take such pride in a team, an individual winning a championship. And, you know, it's a real good feeling. It gives them like a glimmer of hope in some way. It shows that they're still strong. We've heard stories where the 1968 Detroit Tigers, when the city of Detroit, there'd be constant battles in the street. Oh, let's go a step further. Who we had as a guest, Barry McGuigan from Ireland. Okay, there was a civil war in Ireland, but when he fought, they call it truce. No, there'd be no fighting in the streets because he was a great source of pride. And you want that for the Ukrainian people. It kind of symbolically it shows they stand strong. I mean, Lomachenko's just one soldier. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. How much of a physical effect is he going to have on the war?
Really?
Compared to the emotional effect he's going to have.
I can tell that you've never been in the military with that perspective. And secondly, as far as a country down and out, we're talking about a country being invaded, being killed, not down and out. And there's no comparison at all to the street fighting.
Down and out were wrong words. You're right.
From Detroit fighting in the streets to being taken over by one of the largest armies in the world that could probably destroy you if they really wanted to. And you see, when you, I understand what you're saying. You make a couple points, but man, the army would be not the army if they took that perspective.
But I think he did it the right way. He asked the people in power, could he do this?
Well, he had no
they
choice.
Said it's okay.
Huh? No. First, they didn't say it's okay, and second, he has no choice. He by law, martial law, he's not allowed to leave. So he doesn't have a choice. And now,
if they give him the permission to leave,
oh yeah, if they do, great.
Then it's null and void because they gave him the permission.
Yeah.
He could have said, "Hey, I'm gonna stay in Greece. I'm gonna fight in Australia, like you said, and not even say a word about it."
But
he said, "I'm going to support Ukraine and I'm going to support their freedom, but I'm going to do what I want to do." No, but he went back to Ukraine.
But he didn't do that. He didn't do that, and he didn't say that. So, you know, I mean,
and that's what I'm saying. He went about it the right way. If they say no, he'll say, "Okay, I'm going to do what I have to do. I'll be here."
Yeah,
and he's not arguing with the system.
It's a real interesting, thought-provoking thing. So,
just quickly, Jim, because I know we're wrapping up. The money he could make could help some people in need in Ukraine. I'm sure he would want to donate X amount of money, as well.
He might donate his whole pot to it.
There you go. He might, and it sure would help him out when they're getting blown to hell. But anyway, folks, we do love having you come in. We love having conversations like this because they are in-depth and thought-provoking, either side that you take. There normally is points to both sides, and there's a thought process to both sides. And really, nobody's right or nobody's wrong. It just comes down to what your thoughts are. And that's why I love doing shows and talking about topics like this. So, folks, you have a great Sunday. March Madness. Yeah, March Madness is in full swing. Catch tomorrow. Catch Jack and Frank Lutirzo on the boxing great show Glove Fists, and Jim and Byron Wednesday on J&B
talking shop.
Guys, have a great day. Great show. Great having you on. Take care.